Hi, I'm Teacher Charlene, and today I'm going to read Rabbit Stew. But first, let's read a poem. It's called Me Stew. I have nothing to put in my stew, you see, not a bone or a bean or a black-eyed pea. So I'll just climb into the pot to see if I can make a stew out of me. I'll put in some pepper and salt, and I'll sit in the bubbling water. I won't scream a bit. I'll sing while I simmer. I'll smile while I'm stewing. I'll taste myself often to see how I'm doing. I'll stir me around with this big wooden spoon and serve myself up at 1:15 noon. So bring out your stew bowls, you gobblers and snackers. Farewell, and I hope you enjoy me with crackers. Rabbit Stew by Donna Casal, illustrated by Tamara Petrosino. Once a while back, in a rickety old shack, there lived a dog. He wasn't very smart, he didn't have much money, but he was happy. The dog had a garden laid out in neat rows, nestled in a sunny meadow. In the spring, the dog planted seeds in his garden. In the summer, he cared for the plants and watched them grow. Then he would pick and eat the vegetables he'd grown. The dog loved his garden. This is a great time to plant a garden. It's got plenty of sun, and we have our soil in the ground, and we also have a lot of rain, at least where I'm at in Oregon. But there might be some good times of year for you to do it too. Usually in the spring is a really good time to start some of your plants. But he had one big problem. Hungry rabbits would sneak into his garden and nibble on his vegetables. They made holes in his cabbage leaves, they dug up his carrots and potatoes, and they chewed up all of his parsley. The dog tried chasing the rabbits away, but they always came back. Then one day, the dog looked out his window and saw those rabbits eating all his tender new lettuce plants. That was the last straw. The dog ran into the garden and chased the rabbits around and around until he caught them at last with a leap and a pounce. Thought the dog. Now what should I do with these pesky rabbits? Maybe I'll make a rabbit stew. Yes, I think that's what I'll do. So the dog took the rabbits inside and put them in a large cooking pot. Then he opened his cookbook, but he couldn't find a recipe for rabbit stew, and he didn't know what to do. What kind of stews can you make at home? There's lots of different things that you can put into a stew, like potatoes and carrots and cabbage. What kinds of things do you think you would put into a stew? One clever rabbit said, "You could go out to the garden and get some carrots to put in the stew." Good idea, thought the dog. So he said to the little rabbits, "Wait right here while I go out to the garden to get some carrots." And the little rabbits nodded their heads and said, oh yes, we'll try our best." But as soon as the dog went out to the garden, the rabbits leaped from the pot and scampered happily out the door. When the dog returned, he saw that all the rabbits were gone. He dropped the carrots into the pot, feeling a little disappointed. What does that mean? Disappointed. It can mean that maybe you didn't get your favorite toy and you're just sad because you didn't get it. That's disappointed. It could mean that your friend wasn't able to come over today, even though you really, really wanted to play with them. That's disappointed. The next day, when the dog looked out his window, the rabbits were nibbling on his onions. So the dog chased them around and around until he caught them at last with a leap and a pounce. Then he took those rabbits back inside and put them back in the large cooking pot. Now, said the dog, I have rabbits and carrots to make rabbit stew. Then one little rabbit said, But you must have celery for a rabbit stew. You're sure? Said the dog. I'll go out to the garden to get some celery. But this time you have to remember to stay in the pot, okay? The little rabbits nodded their heads and said, oh yes, we'll try our very best. But as soon as the dog went out of the garden, all the rabbits scampered happily out the door. When the dog came back, he saw the rabbits were gone. As he put the celery in the pot, he thought to himself, those rabbits aren't very smart. They forgot to stay in the pot again. The next day, the hungry rabbit sneaked into the garden again. So the dog chased them around and around until he caught them at last with a leap and a pounce. Then he put those rabbits back in the large cooking pot. I have rabbits and carrots and celery, said the dog. Now I can make rabbit stew. But you must have potatoes and onions to make rabbit stew, said one clever rabbit. Yes, I know, said the dog, trying to look smart. But if I go out to the garden, you rabbits will forget to stay in the pot. After thinking a bit, one rabbit said, you could shut the door. Then we couldn't run out that way. Good idea, thought the dog. Then he said to the rabbits, now you stay in the pot while I go dig up some potatoes and onions. The rabbits nodded their heads and said, oh yes, we'll try our very best. Out to the garden the dog went, closing the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, the rabbits leaped to the window and jumped out. Then away they ran, glad they had fooled the dog again. When the dog came back, he saw that the rabbits were gone. He put the potatoes and onions in the pot, and to his surprise, the pot was full to the top with vegetables. There's no room for rabbits. It's just as well that the rabbits are gone, said the dog, because they wouldn't fit in the pot anyway. I'll just make rabbit stew without the rabbits. Then he felt very proud for having such a good idea. Happily, the dog poured some water into the pot, turned on the stove, and cooked his rabbit stew. It smelled delicious. For supper, he ate 3 big bowls of stew. Then, when he couldn't eat another bite, the dog put some of the leftover stew outside for the rabbits. After all, he said to himself, those rabbits might not be very smart, but they sure know how to make a good rabbit stew. The end. What shape is this? It's round. It doesn't have any sides. It doesn't have any corners. It looks a lot like a circle. But a circle is perfect round. This is kind of stretched out. This is called an oval. What kinds of things can you find around your home that look like an oval? I bet you I could come up with a great one. It looks like something that comes from a chicken, and little baby chicks come out of it, called an egg. There's lots of other different things that you could find that look like an oval. Look around your home. See if you can find anything. Until next time, don't forget to go play outside. Okay? Bye.